All right, we're going to do a little bit of a reading now. And then we're going to do a little bit of a reading. Then we're going to do a little bit of a sort of, before we get on vacation all week, we're each going to individually chuck somebody in the gulag. And then we'll take a few more calls and some Discord questions, and then we'll be adieu. Have you guys read this piece by Sonny Bunch? And that is actually literally his name.
I had to miss it when I really saw the title. I almost clicked for a second. I was like, I just can't let this like live in my brain for the next 48 hours.
You were looking up Garth Brooks' campaign contributions?
Pretty much.
It's like, Garth even gave money to the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. Yeehaw! Mr. Garth Brooks, do you support the prison strike? That was I like that. I mean, I thought it was funny, but I like the dick move of Leck. We're like, you know what? Let's get a little fucking Cash and Nelson on this show. They're great. And he's just like, you want country music, motherfucker?
Garth is like one of the highest grossing.
He's the Michael Jackson of country music.
I
was going to do Alan Jackson, but
no. That was Garth Brooks is the Michael Jackson of country music. That was a money take. Okay. The CIA funded a culture war against communism, and it should do so again. By Sonny Bunch in the Washington Post, August 22nd.
Sonny Bunches of Oats is what I like to call it.
Sonny Bunches.
You've been on it today, Matt.
Yes, you have. And Sonny Bunches of we are winning even more than I thought we were. When I saw this fucking lunatic column. Earlier this month, we're going to just take a couple of graphs of this, kind of do a breakdown. Earlier this month, sorry to bother you, director, Boots Riley tweeted, art for art's sake is never for art's sake. It's for the sake of the status quo. This is why the CIA funded Jackson Pollock. Set aside the vaguely totalitarian suggestion that art must by its nature exist either in support of or opposition to the political establishment. Okay, my first brief editorial is not that it needs to, it's that it does. But
it's that it's helpful when it's apolitical for the status quo. This is
definitional
shit.
Which is why they funded Jackson Pollock, because his artwork was so abstract that people had a difficult time building political content out of it.
It does look really cool, though. I will say. Today, I'd like to focus on the CIA's involvement in the Cold War's culture war, and think back to a better time, when ideas were taken seriously and art was considered transformative, and keep in mind ways in which the agency could help artists struggling to break through overseas today.
Oh my God.
All right, guys. Initial reactions to this very promising piece of writing by Sonny Bunches of Oats.
I mean, this is just like the perfect culmination of the way that the Washington Post has been going for like the past 5 years.
With the elegant and notable and brilliant exception of our friend Elizabeth Brunig. Yes.
Of course.
Right.
But I mean, to pine for the days when the U.S. funded shitty art around the world.
You know what that reminds me of? There was a piece several years ago in the New Republic where he's less relevant now, but there was a guy named Rendon. I think it was John Rendon. And he was one of the major PR firms behind doing propaganda for the Bush war on terrorism and invasion of Iraq. And the New Republic wrote like this whole kind of like, it was a fascinating piece, but the editorial line was essentially like, this guy really sucks, and we need to get back to like the serious days when we didn't outsource important work like war propaganda. When the CIA did its own justification for coups and murdering civilians globally, we didn't hand it off to some hack PR firm. Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons I sort of am glad that I started Literary Hangover back in the 1600s is because assessing fiction and literature post-Cold War becomes so fraught with this sort of pollution, right? Like so many of these publications, you needed to be a fucking square like in order to be published in these places.
Exactly.
Because of the CIA like funding the Iowa Writers Workshop or the Paris Review and all this sort of shit. So like that we want to bring that. Should we bring that back? Like,
bring that back.
No, we need to fucking bury that shit forever. Well, not just that, not even bury it. We need to exhume the body, show it off to everybody to see what happened. and then we can maybe move culturally forward without that sort of poisonous influence.
Are we being totalitarian enough for you, Sonny?
You think that's totalitarian, Sonny Bunches of Oats?
Oh yeah, you wait for totalitarian,
It'll be
buddy.
all soggy.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten to the gulag yet, motherfucker. Those interested in the CIA's covert cultural wars should check out Who Paid the Piper by Francis Stoner Saunders. Check this out. Now,
Stoner Sanders, that's me.
Are these real names that are going on?
Well, no, this is right.
I've actually this is a good piece, actually.
Well, check this out. Yeah. Granted, it's an unrelentingly negative portrayal of the efforts by Michael Joslison, Nicholas Nabokov, and others to funnel money from the CIA into the hands of artists and intellectual journalists that highlighted the Western world's commitment to individual freedom. Once again, literally at a time when you're, murdering Patrice Lumumba, you're highlighting your complete commitment to individual freedom. Okay. But if you can set aside the author's bias, you'll discover a fascinatingly Byzantine effort to turn the world to the American way of thinking via the pen rather than munitions and murder. Okay, guys, I'm going to get back to you, but I just would like to say a historical assessment of CIA behavior from Asia, Latin America, and Africa in the Cold War, I would say let's be diplomatic here and say the pen was supplementing the munitions and murder.
Whenever Nixon talks about Ivy Leaguers on his tapes, the common sort of interpretation has been that sort of anti-Semitism or the sort of anti-WASP or whatever. I read that as he's upset with the type of people who basically have a relationship, official or not, with intelligence in America. And the next line actually says that. What does it say? The CIA at its founding was largely run by Ivy Leaguers, would-be highbrows and intellectual. That a sentence after, he says the effort to turn the world to the American way of thinking. So the American way of thinking basically decided by Ivy Leaguers from the mid-century.
Exactly.
Oh, I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, I can't believe this claim. I have to wonder when I'm reading this whether or not the CIA is sitting there shaking their head, saying we should not be outsourcing our jobs to intolerable acts.
I think Sonny Bunches of Oats is the kind of stan that I don't even think gets contracts.
No,
he's the kind of guy. He's like, no, I'll just do it for free. I'll literally propagandize on behalf of one of the most ruthless, dangerous intelligence organizations whose very existence is frankly a contradiction to transparent democracy. I don't know why he's talking like Jordan Peterson, but it just feels right.
Well, because
I'll just do that.
Jordan Peterson is the same sort of anti-communist that, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets funding from certain quasi-governmental organizations.
I would not be surprised. And they're both the same kind of credulous shitheads that could write a column literally saying we should restart intelligence propaganda programs in the same column that's like, because, democracy is under threat.
Basically says subsidize guys like me.
Right. I would totally like more funding. Why does that black guy get to make movies? What about me? The CIA at its funding, was largely funded by the Ivy Leaguers, would-be highbrows and intellectuals. It makes sense that they'd have been attracted to the ideas of men like Melvin Latsky, the consummate Cold Warrior, who pushed for the founding of a magazine designed to bridge the gap between the West and the rest. According to a post-war memo by Latsky submitted to the U.S. Army, journalists like Giramana would serve as, quote, a demonstration that behind the official representation of democracy, American democracy, lies a great and progressive culture with a richness of achievement in the arts, literature, philosophy, and all aspects of culture which unite the free traditions of Europe and America. All right, this goes on and is as credulous and insane as you could imagine. And again, I love that he is literally basing a lot of this information off of a book that is actually a historical critique of this self-evidently dangerous program. But now this is where it gets really juicy, and where I think your guys' careerist instincts, or maybe just honey bunches of off every med conceivable, really start to kick in. Which brings me back to Riley and Sorry to Bother You. The director in recent weeks has complained of not being able to obtain foreign distribution for his entertaining new picture. This is understandable. Indies often have trouble, but unfortunate. The movie's message would resonate in China, the world's second largest market. After all, Sorry to Bother You Sorry to bother you's worry-free corporation, which feeds and houses workers in factories to increase productivity, seems a dead ringer for Foxconn, the quote-unquote forbidden city where Chinese workers manufacture Apple devices. The movie's message might appeal to people in a nation where poets and artists and activists have been imprisoned for bucking the leadership's dictates. Now, that's all true. 100%. China is a very repressive country. And as you just said, bunches of oats, they have abusive sweatshop conditions, which make all of the consumer electronic goods of U.S.-based corporations. You dumb motherfucker. Take it away, guys.
It's also no doubt that Boots Riley movie, which is incredible by the way, is been getting such positive reviews in the United States because it speaks a lot to the fucking conditions here, right? I mean, it's not
right. By the way, not only is that true, but also like literally right down to Scott Walker is working his ass off to get a Foxconn in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I didn't leave Sorry to Bother You thinking that'll show China.
Yeah, I was just like,
actually,
worry free. That's that goddamn rapper, he just made a goddamn polemic against China, say? The CIA ought to fund this. What do you think of that, Chairman Shea?
Actually, let's take it one step further and say, Sorry to Bother You might have universal appeal across the world that is dominated by capitalism and the form of wage labor exploitation.
It's almost like a movie that illustrates the universal abuses of the capitalist class and the definitionally exploited state of labor in a capitalist economy. It's almost like that movie does that.
This is obviously, it's just this guy's such a hack, and this is such an absolute embarrassment. But this is something, the history of the CIA involvement in the arts movement is something that's even embarrassing to like fairly centrist liberals.
Right.
They look at this as like a dark period in our history, right? And it's incredible today that folks think that this is anything. And I don't know if this is necessarily something that only like the more like wild, fringy, right? Because to imagine for a second that like, I mean, who knows what kind of art forms that this guy's talking about, recreating. But to actually think that that's going to have something that's is going to repel.
Well, here it is. Here's what he's literally
please tell me,
proposing.
actually. I didn't want to deal with it.
I don't know how much longer we can do this. If the CIA were looking to have some fun in the cultural space, I love now we're literally merging the worst. Now he's using like the speak of a brand planner at some agency in Lower Manhattan now. If the CIA was looking for a way to have some fun in the cultural space, they could do worse than distribute Riley's opus. Commission a top-shelf translation for subtitles. Bang out Samizdat DVDs. I don't know what that is. And upload the movie to his...
Samizdat basically like they're distributed unofficially.
Oh, okay. Got you. Samizdat DVDs and upload the movie to as many filing, sharing, and streaming services as possible. How better to demonstrate the unfettered freedom American artists have in America to criticize the system? So now we're flipping. Now it's, that'll show China. You get to make a movie that criticizes capitalism in America, to which everybody would say, yes, I'm glad that we have more freedom of expression than China. Okay. And this is going to prove what exactly?
Well, I think that point is just obnoxious. But to go back to his,
it might even spur. I'm sorry, just last point. It might even spur Chinese citizens to take action against the Communist Party-backed businesses that dominate commerce in the state. No, it might spur them, as they already are trying to do under the conditions of abuse by their own government and all Western multinationals that operate there, to form an independent labor movement so they aren't ruthlessly exploited, just as they are here at a more rapid rate every day, because most American politicians in the pocket of that same corporate sector want America to have the same utterly destroyed free union movement as they do in a place like China. Witness the Janus decision. You stupid, dumb, ahistorical, economically illiterate, embarrassing motherfucker.
what a way to show American values than to have state industry get involved in the production of cultural products.
Yeah, no, that's real American values.
Free
It's-
market.
Yeah.
Well, actually, in a way, it is very American, right? To just have the federal government float money to a bunch of ignorant, fat sons of bitches who make way too much fucking money, and all the working people absolutely fucking hate, than to just fund obnoxious CIA cultural projects.
But it was funny. But I will say this. If the CIA would like to take him up on this idea, I'm totally game for more and more people watching Sorry to Bother You. So I hope that the mid-level brains in the intelligence apparatus are reading the mid-level brains of the Washington Post editorial page.